Hello there, everyone. Welcome to another Irrational Passions Review Discussion here on the Irrational Passions Presents feed. Today, this is Jurge, by the way. Hi, everyone. This is Jurge Cruz. Today, I'm joined by one Mike Burgess. Mike, how are you doing?
Hey, Jurge. I'm doing great.
And we are here to discuss an interesting small, well, I guess it's not that small in terms of length, I guess, but an indie game that is a story-driven. They pitch it as a soap opera sort of thing, right? I think that's what their marketing material says. Okay. It is Mutazione. Okay, this is okay.
Yeah,
I wrote it down here. Mutazione. Yeah, so we're going to talk about it here. If this is your first Irrational Passions review discussion, this is sort of, in terms of, it's pretty much a review. Mike is going to be our reviewer here. I'm going to walk through him, what he thought about the game. We've both played it, but his opinion is the opinion of review record, I suppose. And so we'll walk through his thoughts and then put a score on this one here. So yeah, we both played through this game. Codes were sent to us by the PR representative for it. It is the newest game from the developers of Johann Sebastian Joust. De Gute Fabrik. I hope I pronounced that right. De Gute Fabrik. I had to go to their Twitter account where they're like, "Hey, this is how you pronounce our stuff."
Yeah.
So yeah, did you not know this is the next folk from the folks that did Johann?
I did not know they did the Sebastian Joust.
Yeah, that and Sports Friends. So
yeah, I knew about that one, but yeah, I didn't know this was them too.
Yeah, well, Johann Sebastian Joust was in Sports Friends, I believe. So, So yeah, it's very, very different. This game. You want to give the pitch for it, Mike?
So, yeah, totally. It's kind of a side-scrolling, kind of story-driven adventure game. It's all kind of 2D, very kind of, it's not, I wouldn't say like a minimalist, but it's like very like bright colors, like a lot of greenery. You're on an island. You're this young girl named Kai, and she has gone to this island to meet her grandfather, who she has not really met before, has not really been a part of his lives. They kind of have this sense of he's kind of this mysterious guy. So yeah, she's gone to this island, and in this world, a meteor has hit this island and has kind of made the island inhabitants mutated. Now that sounds kind of like horrible and horrifying and grotesque, but it's all kind of done in a very like cartoony kind of 2D like lighthearted style. Like everyone's very friendly, and like it's not like it gets into like how all this stuff went down as you play through the game, but it's done in a very lighthearted fashion. Like it's a very, very family vibes and focus for the people on the island.
Right. Yeah. And so as Kai, I almost forgot her name. There it is, Kai, right? Okay. Yeah. I just played through this game, I swear. So as Kai, once you meet your grandfather, you sort of realize that when you get to him, he is very, very sick. He was like the shaman for the island. The island is very much they have their own culture. They're sort of very isolated from the mainland. They never have a lot of visitors. And which is why Kai has never been here. Well, there's some stuff. On its surface, it appears that it is because, that's the mutant area. Nobody goes there. But there's some family stuff, some tension and some history, that there's a reason why Kai maybe has never visited the island. But the point is, the mutation around the island has made like its inhabitants a lot different, and it has sort of created a culture where they're very in tune with the plant life and how nature has has adapted to the mutations, like to like the fungus and the radiation and what does it all mean? Like, it's not. They sort of add it's not just science. There's sort of an actual spiritual thing that is going on here. And so your grandfather, is part of his shaman duties, he sort of like took care of him and some guy named Yoke. I believe his name is Yoki or Yoke. They're sort of the researchers for the island, and they know that there is a connection to the plant life. There's a significant connection to the plant life of the island and sort of like the balance of it all. And so your grandpa sets you out on to go make these like gardens, and you like sing to them, and it grows. And after a while, you realize that the gardens you are building is having an effect on not just like the island, but also like the vibe of the people there. And also you go around and you meet these people. The game takes place like in the span of a week, which is interesting once you look back on it all. But yeah, you just hang out on the island, make gardens. You try to discover like what actually happened, what is the history here, and you get closer to the people on the island. That's really what the game is about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of it is driven by you, like you said, adventuring around the island. The gardens are kind of your main objective, so to speak. Like they're kind of like the end goal of like it's not really like quest lines, but it's kind of the end goal of like the game's kind of set up in like in days, like you said, it's like over a week. So like you kind of start in the morning and you'll have tasks to do, then you'll kind of go throughout the day, and usually somewhere like towards the end of the day is when you're making this garden. And then there's while you're adventuring around throughout the day, you're going and talking to all these characters, and there's like a whole like they're a very tight-knit group. You can immediately, like, I feel like that was like very first impression was they, like you said, they're isolated on this island. Everyone kind of knows everyone, and everyone is talking about everyone in the same way. Like it's a very interesting like dynamic that I'm personally not used to, but like it was very interesting to like watch, like, you know, one thing happens and then it'll just have a ripple effect of everybody wants to know what's going on with this one person because this one thing happened or something like that. It's interesting.
Right. So I guess before we start getting into like the real meat of the game, Mike, I think the first thing when you look at this game is obviously the way it looks. It has sort of I'll let you describe it in terms of like what you felt about it, but to me it felt like it's got this storybook sort of look to it. It looks kind of like if you made a game out of construction paper a little bit. Like it's got that like that texture of, to me at least, it looks like that texture of construction paper. Like they're not full solid colors. Like all the everyone has like a sort of like, it feels like if I was to touch these characters, they would feel sort of like how construction paper would feel. It is minimalist in that like Kai herself has no facial features. All the other characters have facial features, but they're very it's very like not that accentuated. A lot of like the small creatures of the island, like the dots, which are little circle fellas over there, just have like 2 dots for an eye and then a smile. But yeah, Mike, what do you think of the way the game looks?
I think you pretty much nailed it. Like I definitely got like a kind of children's like book, like a nursery rhyme, like I don't know why this, like there's the one book I remember as a kid, even though this isn't like that minimalist, but there was the one about like the fish, that like was about like it was like about a fish that was like had to get sparkles on it.
Yeah, there's a rainbow fish.
The rainbow fish. Like I don't know what it was, but like I was picturing like that image, like the cover of that book, because of how like like you said, it looks like when you would touch it, it would feel like paper and like construction paper, and it'd have this kind of like tactile feel to it or whatever. Like that's what like a lot of this game looks like, and I think the way they really nail it is like I said, it goes through different parts of the day. So you're starting in the morning and going into evening and then into nighttime, and as you're seeing this, you're also seeing like the lighting change on the island, and I think they handle like how they portray like light in this flat world really cool. At least like I was playing on PC. Like it's not like a big like very demanding game by any means, but I remember like since it's all 2D, it's kind of a straight plane more or less, and there's like some depth to it. Like there's one basically main town you're walking through, and there's like different parts you can go through there. But once you pretty much venture outside of that, it's basically like kind of 2D side scrolling. And like there's one side which you kind of go to the coast, and there's a lighthouse there, and how they show the lighthouse like and its lights off, it looked really cool. And then when you're in the town at night, like you can, they portray death with a depth with like good lighting in the houses in a way that's like it's still like that flat look, but you can tell that, like there's people in this house, or this house is, because you can see like a light out outside, or like you can see kind of lights from inside in an interesting way, or just like a doorway is lit and you can kind of see in. And I just think they handle like the meshing this flat look with like a weird depth to it at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
It's cool.
I think for me, it's a very chill game, and I think that is in the music, in the way characters speak, in the way. So we should probably mention that there's no voice acting in this game. It's all text bubbles. I think the way that it is like shown off is very like soft font. Sometimes like the text will animate in a weird way to show emoting, like if someone's angry or someone's whispering. But yeah, it's I think I'm gonna make, me personally, I make a lot of comparisons to this game to Night in the Woods, which was a game where you were in a place and walking around that neighborhood and talking to people as they go about their lives. And that was also just text only. This game reminds me a lot of that, except Night in the Woods was a little bit more platformy. Like it was a lot more mobile, walking around, like you could jump and stuff. And this one you're just walking around the area. But yeah, the art style gives like a very relaxing, calm, warm feeling. And like when you get to the areas that are a bit more mutated or a bit more abandoned, you get that, because when you're in the main city, it feels like a community, it feels like a small little village, and then later it's like, oh yeah, this place is like kind of like an isolated zone. Like it's kind of like there's nothing here. Like there used to be something here. Like it looks like a Last of Us sort of post-apocalyptic vibe, but at the same time, there's also the nature is taking this place over. So like you can see a mall. You also see like small weird animals that have like, I don't even know how to describe them. They're like bug like creatures sort of thing. Yeah, the art is really good in this game, and I think the art takes place in it's sort of mingled with how you roam around the game, because I mentioned Night in the Woods, but like that was like a flat game where you were walking back and forth and jumping on pole lines and all this stuff. But in this game, you're just sort of walking. You're just walking from point A to point B, and it is kind of like a side scroller, but like it's like the scene is the background, and then your character is walking for the foreground and the background, up and down, to make their way where you need to go. And Mike, I wanted to ask you about the traversal, because we'll get to the writing, which I think is one of the strongest things about the game. But in order to get to that writing, you have to like sort of move around the world and navigate it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there was a focus on the story parts, which is where all the writing and like kind of the character like back and forth, that definitely plays a role. That's probably like the strongest stuff in the game. But yeah, some of the traversal stuff and just some of the like general gameplay stuff is not the best, but it's like it's not like terrible, but it's just like, yeah, like you said, it's a lot of just walking to A and B. Some dialogue back and forth between characters will kind of tell you like in general what you do, but they don't really give specifics. Like excuse me, the specifics are more like you press the pause button and go into a menu, and you have a little journal, and the journal will just say, hey, go to this place, and like that's kind of what you go off. So there's a lot of just, you'll have this conversation with this person, and it's a good conversation, it's fun and lighthearted, but then there's like no real information gained for what you're supposed to do next necessarily. So it's just kind of like, all right, well, let me just hit pause and open this menu, and I guess I'll go do that now.
It's like Kai, so it's written as like Kai is writing down in a journal, and she's like, she has like the game isn't directly telling you, but it's like, I have a hunch that I should go to X to talk to Y person.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like it feels like they just were trying to have the writing be the writing and not necessarily be too like, all right, well, we're a video game now, and we'll just tell you to do the video game part, or more or less in some way. Like, if that makes sense. I feel like they were trying to have both, but I just don't think it. I think it would have been okay to have moments where they just, maybe if you just had that conversation and then maybe you can go back and talk to the character again, then they'll tell you what you got to do next. Like, I think that could have worked fine too. And they still could have wrote around that, instead of it's just like, all right, you had the conversation, and sometimes you're just kind of having that conversation, and then it's like, all right, well, now I'm back, done that, got to do the game part now, and it's just, you got to pause it, you get what you got to do, and then you just go do it. And that kind of, the game isn't very long. Like, I beat it about 5 hours, but even then, it's still having it just be that kind of over and over again, like, definitely kind of wore on me still, where the island is the island. That's like where you're going throughout the whole game, and there's a lot of backtracking. You're going a lot to the same areas again, and they don't really make it very interesting to go back and forth, because you're just kind of going back to talk to this character, and have a little story moment. Then you just got to open this book and figure out where to go again, and it's just kind of, it's very, very, it's a little repetitive. I found it.
Yeah, I think it felt like the developers. It's a very slow paced game. While it's not very long, it is linear in that you will always know where to. It is always telling you where to go next, but the game is also giving you enough stuff on the side that you can go visit with other characters if you would like. But in terms of like we talked about, like you mentioned, you are pretty much going back to these same places. I think it felt like it is a slower paced game, and the developers felt like they wanted you to really take in this community in this area. But like you mentioned, there isn't enough new things or enough interesting things along the way that, and again, you're just walking, like, and you're just like I mentioned in Night in the Woods, and this doesn't have to be a direct comparison to Night in the Woods, but something that made Night in the Woods a little bit more interesting was the fact that you could jump on pole lines, or you could go over here, like take a shortcut, and there are some shortcuts here, but when you don't take that shortcut, then you just realize, oh man, I made the wrong turn, now I gotta go here, go through another loading screen, and then go up here. Right. Yeah, it felt like they wanted you to really take in that place, but at the same time, like you mentioned, Mike, it gets kind of annoying a little bit. And it makes it feel a little bit more like you're just going through your paces. Once you get in the rhythm of the game, I think when you first start the game, it's really cool, like, because you're taking in the whole area. But after a while, like once you're towards like the later chapters of the game, because the game is separated into chapters or days, really, because you have like morning, day, evening, and pretty much every new chapter is pretty much a new day. It does get a little bit like I've been here, done that. But
and I think it's not the best, but I think the game does make up for it in some ways by what we were saying before, where like the writing and some of the character interactions I think are really good, and like some of that is in the main story, but I think some of it is also, like you said, it's not on the direct path. Like sometimes there are opportunities for, it'll give you like the main objective you need to do in your notebook, but then it'll also have like a little note being like, hey, let's check in on this character, see how they're doing, because some event might have happened the night before that maybe they had a problem, or maybe they had a fight with another character or something on that lines,
right?
Or they were trying to figure something out, because there is a little bit of like there's a bunch of stuff going on between the characters, because it is that that close island. It feels like you're kind of like this, definitely a theme around it is like it's kind of a family away from a family, so to speak.
Yeah. So yeah, like we talked about the sort of moving around, which I think you and I are like, that's one of the major negatives about this game for us. But let's talk about the stuff that is so good about that really makes this game, and that is the writing and the characters. Can you tell me about like what were some of your favorite characters from the game that are on the side, just those side characters that had nothing to do with the main story, and Like what you thought of what that was so good about the writing.
I think like the standout character for me in this was Miyu. She is like this cat lady.
Yeah.
And she just like she's very in the start, like you don't really interact with her at all. Like it takes a little bit to like get to her story, so to speak. Like she just kind of appears in a scene while you're talking. There's this other guy who's kind of like happy-go-lucky dude. He's like the one like other human character, I think is how they refer to them, and that's Spike.
Right.
He's like he owns this bar on the island. He's pretty good too. But like Miyu's story was very interesting. Because she finally gets kind of more introduced, like once you get to, I think it's like the third garden or so.
Yes,
I think it's
she has like
there.
the sad garden. It's about chapter 3 where you go off on a little adventure with her. And I think like you mentioned, sorry to cut you off, Mike, but that is like when I think of like some of the key moments in this game, the stuff with Mew, like that one section in chapter 3, it's really well done.
Yeah, because I think it's that thing of. Up until that point, they, you know the background of what happened on this island, but like you get there and like everyone's like super happy go lucky and kind of like it is that very friendly. They're living on this island, but they're isolated, but they have each other, and that's all that matters, and it's a good time, and like that's all portrayed. And then this is kind of that moment when you start interacting with Miyu is like when you kind of start to see like. The cracks a little bit of like, hey, there's some bad stuff that happened years ago on this island because of this, the meteor that hit, and then scientists came to try and figure out what happened and try and fix it, quote unquote, and her basically you learn that as a part of these scientists coming and trying to save everyone. Her husband got involved, and then a bad event happened in that thing that's kind of tied to like kind of towards like you see towards the end of the game, which we might get into, but
maybe we'll see. It's a little bit spoilery, but
I don't want to get too into that. But basically, you find out that her husband and they had children. They are all gone at this point on the island, so she's kind of alone. And like chapter 3 is like this happened, years ago now in her life at this point. And so you building this garden for her, and in general, she kind of befriends you, and you kind of see her trying to figure out like where do I go from here? What am I doing? And like, where's my direction now? Because she thought she lost everything, but now she does have these people on the island, and you kind of start to see that change in her, and it's a very good like way like you said they do it very well, and you see it like kind of from all the angles, and I think it's very well done. It's like probably my most standout moments of the game, where seeing her kind of coming back from everything, all this horrible stuff, and learning about her history and all that.
Yeah, it's for a second there, it looks like there's maybe like a romance happening a little bit, but for a second there, but then it sort of doesn't. It's just she has a great scene when you go to her little hideaway. But yeah, there are many other. For me, one of my favorite characters was Alan's story with Rob. And these just sound like names for listeners, but there's this character who's like sort of married to the ferryman of the island who comes to the mainland, and here he's actually the person who brought you here on his ferry, his boat. In the relationship, she's a very kind person who's like is 5 months pregnant, and that is one of the key stories in the game. Like that relationship she has with the ferryman and her pregnancy, and what that involves, like that there's a whole thing there. Like that's one of the main things of the game that kind of I found it a little bit unexpected. I was like, oh, that's where we're going with this, huh? But even then, it's like these small side creatures on the island, like the dots and the like little workermen. I don't know if they ever give them names. The people who work underneath, the like little tube people, like little macaroni people.
I don't think they give them much time.
Yeah, he's all like, oh, they're like entrepreneurs, capitalist guys. They're like weird, but they're fun. But yeah, I think one of the I think, and this is like one of my big things that I liked about this game a whole lot. And you mentioned it, is like there is a feeling that not only stuff has happened, but you are connected to it in a few steps. Like you don't even know like how much your family means to this island and the people here, and what you being here means now. Like for me, it was everyone there knows who you are by the time you get there, and people have like very emotional responses once they see you. I forget her name. Was it Claire? I think it was Claire. She's one of the shopkeepers of the island.
She breaks down like pretty much as soon as you first try to introduce yourself to her.
Right,
because you look like your mother, essentially, who used to live on the island but does not anymore.
Right, and and because people have been here for years and years and years, like decades, and they've been so isolated, and when they see you there, it's just very emotional, and that was interesting to me because it's a story about family, but not just like it reminded me of when I'm a person who's very distant from my family, like I like to keep to myself, and so I've recently, now that I'm getting older, I've been trying to like I'm no longer this weird kid who doesn't like sort of knows themselves. Like I can come in a little bit more, and you realize that like in your mind you didn't think about, and this is maybe just speaking to myself, but like as the person who keeps to themselves, who doesn't talk to a lot of people in their family, you don't think about it too much, but to everyone else, especially the older people who like knew your parents at a very young age, or they used to like, you know, like so the sort of like the aunts and uncles, the grandma and grandpas, like those sorts of, or the cousins that you used to be little kids with, but now they're older, but now you don't see them. You never like those conversations about you are still happening, and you don't realize how much you matter to these people, really, and how the fact that you are missing is not gone unnoticed, and the fact that people talk about you, and the fact that you are here, like you're in this community now where it's hard to explain, I guess, for me, but that feeling of people really did like I actually matter a whole lot to these group of people, even though like I met this uncle one time a long time ago, but you know they know my mom or my grandma, and they were so close, and they asked me like, how is this kid, what's the main character again? Kira, right? Kai, sorry. How's Kai doing? Oh, that's really nice. I haven't seen her forever. She used to love like that stuff of like family is done so well here, in community. That's the stuff that really spoke to me about the writing. Apart from like, again, like there are dumb, silly moments in this game that are very, very small. Like it's a very slice of life game. Apart from all the mystery, science, plant stuff. But yeah, I guess without spoiling it too much, Mike, how did you feel about where the game wound up going once like all the, like we mentioned, the scientist stuff, like in the fact that your grandpa was part of that scientist group and what happened and some of the twists like with Allen and Grubb? How did you feel overall once it was all said and done about where it went and how it all wrapped up there?
I think the like threads were still like interesting, and I think like the like kind of actual like last two chapters of the game are pretty good, but I think it also, by that point, like you said, it felt like it wrapped up super quick to me. Like I feel like you said earlier, the game was pretty slow paced up to a certain point where, you know, you basically go through a day, you know, talk to people around the island, you know, start gathering seeds and all that stuff to build a garden. Then you make the garden, and then you kind of maybe do something at night, and then you start the next day. Where I feel like the last two chapters were kind of just like, all right, we're gonna knock out two of these gardens like right here, right now. Then we're gonna just like roll into this, and it felt like I feel like they had to maybe have wrapped the game up sooner than they thought they did. Maybe I don't know for sure. I don't want to speak too much for them or anything, the developers, but I felt like it just had like a very quick wrap up. Not that it was like handled bad or anything. It just like it felt like there was just like a knob that was like at like a 4 or 5 up to one chapter, and then you hit another chapter, and then it, like it goes up to like 9 or 10. You're just like, whoa, okay, all these things are going off now.
Yeah, and I think that feeling is mostly because it was like by the middle chapters of the game, once you wrap up and you go to bed, there are these sections where like something is happening and it is alluding to like the bigger thing. Right. But when you come back to the next chapter, it's like, all right, it's another day. Yeah, she's over there cooking. Can you go get her like some seeds? They were fighting last night. I should go check out what's up with that. I guess my grandpa wants me to go do this thing. Like, you just go back to the routine, and then once you hit the later chapters, like, okay, no, this is like the main thing right now. This is what's happening, and here's where we're going. And it's like, oh, okay. And I guess for me, it didn't feel as quick as it did for you, but I get what you're coming from, because a lot of that like there are hints to the grander story while you're walking around, but then like all like the big stuff, or at least like the foreshadowing, is so, I guess it's not on the nail enough that once you get to the end, it all feels out of nowhere a little bit. It's like, oh, it's all coming at once. I don't know if that's how you felt.
Yeah, a little bit. They definitely, like, a big thing we really haven't touched on is kind of a main driving force is Kai and her grandfather, and like her grandfather being this shaman for the island is sort of kind of trying to like usher her into that world, and like you said, the island is kind of one with like the nature and sort of the people, and also like music is also kind of important to how the like tune and environments like react and all this stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that, and like the grandfather is like, you know, again, this ties into like basically like the end of this game, so I don't want to like spoil it too hard, but you know, a lot of it is tied to like how the grandfather kind of talks to Kai in like very kind of a vague sense, and is not really explaining things to her in a full manner. And then you as Kai, and you know, there's some like light like decision making in terms of like what you can reply back to him, and like, you know, some also like just with any characters in general. So like you can kind of act out where it's like, you know, hey, I'm kind of frustrated with you not telling me fully what's going on here, and like there's kind of a put there, you can kind of play it out to have this pushback of, you know, he's not really, there's reasons why he's keeping coy with you, and it's not really made clear until like those very big moments in like the last like chapter, more or less. And like it definitely it felt weird to me where he like a lot of the stuff the grandfather was doing in general just like felt off to me in some ways. And like once that stuff started about, it made some of it make more sense, for sure, to be like, okay, got it. But it felt weird while like that was all building up though, where it's just like, I don't know what this guy is actually trying to do, because he's like not trying to tell me stuff but then still making me do all the stuff he's not really telling me about it. I don't understand like what the point is when and then you tie that back into how the game is set up, where he's like being coy with like telling you like what not really to do, but then you just then you finish the conversation and just pause the game, and it just tells you what to do. So it's like very like, that was like a weird dynamic in the game for a while for me, that, you know, didn't make sense. And again, until like some of like the story stuff that is revealed later in the game is like revealed to you, the player, fully, and it's like, oh, okay, that's that, you know, he was going through some stuff, so okay, got it. You know, and I don't want to spoil it necessarily, even though we're kind of doing a review thing, but still.
Yeah. I agree. And I think one thing for me, now that I'm realizing it now, and it's something that left me a little bit unsatisfied, is like I spent more time talking to people and getting closer to the side characters than I did my grandpa in this game. And that's partly because your grandpa is sick, and also because, like you mentioned, he's avoiding talking to you. He's avoiding telling you what's actually happening. But it's weird that by the end of it, when you're feeling this moment like, oh, the game is over, I missed the side characters more than I miss the grandpa character.
Yeah.
And the mother is a side character, is the most side character. She just shows up. She shows up at the end of the game, but she's important because, you know, she actually was born. She had some time in the island, unlike yourself. So yeah, I guess we should lightly talk before we wrap things up here. We should talk about the gardening, because it is so important in the game. It's one of the main things you do. So yeah, you want to talk to the folks about the writing? I mean, not the writing, the gardening, about how it works, and how important it is in the game.
Yeah, sure. So like we said, the game is basically set up into chapters, but those chapters are still kind of like just like a day. While you're going around talking to characters, usually like the day starts with you talking with your grandpa, and he'll kind of, you know, be coy with you about he wants you to take a garden and do this or that. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll do that. And then you'll leave and then see what your objectives are. And usually that'll involve like talking to various characters in the environments in the town, or like maybe they're outside of the town, wherever they are. And usually when you go and talk to them, a part of that kind of like main driving force, they'll usually give you like a task to do, but then like sometimes they'll also give you like a music, like a hum. That's what they refer them to in the game. Like they'll say like so and so character is humming this, and it'll give you like a name. It's like Euphoria and was it Spooky's one, and like basically they're just like different like music styles.
What do they call it? Moods or vibes? I don't know.
I think they're moods, I think is what it is. But yeah, basically they'll give you kind of a song that is tied to a garden that's somewhere on this island, and they're also tied to like the different kinds of seeds and plants, because like you can walk up to like as you're walking around the environments in the 2D, you can walk up to like certain plants and other things, and you can pick seeds off of them. And then when you can plant those seeds in the garden, so that they'll just be a place you can walk up to, sit down, and then it opens up a menu and shows you all the seeds you've picked up, and it'll tell you what types. Like these are like Euphoria seeds, and you know they're like specific named plants. I can't think of any of the names of the plants off the top of my head.
Like melancholic. Yeah. Is it rough or something that was like? This plant is like in the more harsher soil.
Yeah, and they're definitely just, they're kind of like, you know, depending on the genre is kind of what kind of like type of plants there are. You know, there's ones that like, there's one garden where it's like on like a coast, but it's also like, you know, on these like ruins of like bricks. So you're like growing like plants on the sides of these like dilapidated buildings, but also on like a little beach. But then there's one that's like on like the side of a river, and you're like growing it on the side of a tree, and like it's really nice. And I think that's something they did really good, because again the art and the look of the game is really nice. So like no matter what kind of like what you're planting in these different garden areas, once it's fully grown out, like it just kind of looks like it's a part of the game, like in the background. Like you can't make something that looks super weird and out of place necessarily, right. At least from what I found, which I thought was like a smart way to do that. But yeah, once you kind of build out these gardens, that's kind of again tied into your kind of this kind of there's like reasoning behind why all these gardens need to be like fully grown out. Not necessarily that like it helped out a character in particular, but there's like larger reasons that are also you'll see kind of revealed at the end of the game. But yeah, like you said, it fits perfectly with the style of game it is, where it's a lot slower paced, and it's very relaxing, because like, you know, they all like, you know, while you're planting them and like watching them grow, you can kind of take the song that they picked for that particular style, like a Euphoria or melancholic song, and just have it play, and you'll see the plants kind of grow faster while this like nice like relaxing song is playing the whole time. And it's very nice, and like you said, it's very pleasant, it's relaxing, it chills you out while you're playing the game, for sure.
Yeah, and I think if folks hear gardening, it maybe sounds like they maybe think of a little bit more Stardew. It's not that intense. If anything, it can sometimes it's a little too simple, because once you got enough, once you have enough, you have like an actual bar, right? And once for like, I need X amount of plants here to unlock like a full like harmonious song, because the plant, like you mentioned, they're tied to the music and they like make a song, and like you have a full garden pretty much. Once you have X like 5 amounts or 6 amounts of a plant, and you just keep growing them by singing the song over and over, you're complete. You don't have to harvest them all. You don't have to collect all of the seeds, but it is there, but it's not very deep. It's more of a main mechanic and a side thing that propels the story. Like it's a nice change of pace, and it is really cool to see, because the game, like the world kind of feels empty when you start the game, and then you like once you go, because you're doing so much backtracking in the game, you realize, oh hey, there's the garden, and it looks a lot more colorful. Yeah. So that's cool. But I guess with that, I don't know if there is much to be said about it, Mike. So I guess, can you give us your wrapping it up thoughts in totality, your closing thoughts about this game, and a score?
Totally. So I think overall, Mutazione. That's what I'm gonna try.
There you go.
Mutazione. It's fun. It's a fine game. I think it's a very relaxing, chill game. You could pretty much, I think it is one of those games that I think, granted, like where we are right now, where 1 million games just dropped here in September.
Yeah.
So I think it'll make it overlooked a little bit, which is unfortunate, but I also think it's still a perfect game that you can kind of, I could see down the line it just kind of being free on something or on sale on something, and then you pick it up. Somebody picks it up, and then you can play that in a Sunday afternoon and just be like, wow, that was great. I think it's it's like we said, it's not perfect by any means, but it's also not bad. It's just kind of fine. I enjoyed all the small character interactions, all the interacting with Miyu. Like we didn't talk about, like, one of the chapters is like you, her, and another guy on the island. I think his name is like Tung, T-U-N-G, like go on this boat ride. It's very nice and relaxing, and it's a very good character moment where they're all just kind of talking, and like a lot of, at that point in the game, like a lot of stuff has gone down, so like it's just those three kind of just talking about what's going on, and just kind of like what's going on, like how we're doing.
That was nice, because it was the game like realizing, okay, we have to like pick up steam here, but also a lot of this, if we're keeping to the bit of this game being slow paced and chill, they needed that moment. It was a really nice moment to have in between, like this game is finally starting to wrap up. But
yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I would say I don't honestly see myself going back and playing it again. I don't see, I've got that story and seen it play out, and it was good, and that's all I needed. So I think if that sounds nice to you, like a chill gardening out game, very story driven, there's not a lot of active stuff. I think it's even on it's on
Apple Arcade.
Yeah, it's on Apple Arcade. So you can get it right now on your phone. It's I would say.
I don't know how I feel about this game on a phone, honestly.
Yeah, some of the movement stuff could be kind of weird there too. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But it's also on PC. That's where the codes provided to us were on the PC version. So that's where I played it at. And I had fun. And I think my score for it would be a 7.5.
There you go. 7.5. And I think, and like we mentioned it, Mike, and I don't want to change your words, but like it is a slow paced game that it is not going to get to the point quickly. Right. And I think that's fine. I think that's cool. There is not a lot of, I feel like a lot of these smaller indie games, like the games that focus on characters and story, a lot of those like games, some of the like what you would call quote unquote a walking simulator. Sure. I don't think that term is like derogatory anymore. I think people have taken it back. I think it's a good way to explain, like, it is a story driven game. Yeah. A lot of them, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like often they get to a point in 2 to 3 hours. Yeah. But this one, there's a lot of side stuff. There's a lot of just like writing there. And so if that sounds good to you, like something you can settle in with, I think for me it was sort of not the best game to cover in terms of like we wanted to get a review discussion out there timely for folks.
Yeah.
And I found myself rushing through it, and that's very much not this game. It's not a game you want to rush through it.
Right.
It's very much a game to settle with. And yeah, I think it's really nice that something like this could be out there. I think Austin Walker of Waypoint described it as sort of like a oh my god, I just forgot the name of the director. Directed Moonrise Kingdom and the Grand Budapest Hotel. I'm gonna look him up right now. Like the sort of longer movie it's got its very distinct style, but it just kind of hangs out for Wes Anderson. He described it like as a Wes Anderson sort of
yeah,
game.
I can see that.
And it is very much that. So if like that sounds cool to you, like a game with like a long story where a very distinctive look with very distinctive and specific characters, I think this game is totally worth a shot. I think it's hard. Like you mentioned, Mike, there's just so much out there right now. It can be hard for that. But I think in between, like, you're big, like, you're loud, like Sayonara Wild Hearts, and maybe this is dating this conversation a bit, but, like, in terms of, like, you're loud and fast Sayonara Wild Hearts, and you're, like, very loot shooter Borderlands 3, and every other, like, the AAA and there's so many games. This is a nice relaxed game. I think it's a nice holiday game too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so 7.5. Yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for talking to this game for me. Yeah. And thank you to Pop Agenda, who's the PR for this game, for sending us codes for both of us so we could both check it out.
Yep.
I'm glad I did. It's a nice thing. So yeah, this is of course in the Irrational Passions Presents feed. If you are just new, you saw this review and thought you wanted to listen to it and now are subscribed to this feed, there's plenty of other stuff that is also kind of evergreen. Recently we had discussions for Telling Lies, Dangerous Driving, and Bloodstained. Those are all games that came out earlier this year. And yeah, we've had some discussions about them, so poke around on the feed. There's certainly a lot of interesting stuff there. Mike, if people aren't already following you, where can they do so?
Yeah, on Twitter, you can find me at MikeIP_. And everything else I do, video-wise, right now is on youtube.com/irrationalpassions. So go check it out.
Yeah, you can find me at Cruz Alvarez 26. And of course, yes, irrationalpassions.com is the website. But you probably already knew that if you're listening to this. Probably. I don't know. So yeah, until next time, whatever that may be here on the Irrational Passions Presents feed, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.